Namaskar. Today I want to share with you both some of the unexpected gifts and surprising challenges that come with living in a spiritual community. Now, we all have some kind of idealized fantasy of what it would be like, to go off to some ashram and, oh, there's just this wonderful community of all these people that are moving together in perfect harmony and peace towards the same kind of spiritual ideal. They do lots of meditation and they're very compassionate with each other and so on and so forth. Well, okay, spoiler alert is that the reality is a bit different, but it has some really intense benefits for spiritual evolution. And I first want to start out with a story. So once there was an ashram, and actually they had a really good flow. They were mostly some senior disciples, very mature, disciplined, and quite harmonious flow between them. And some new disciple enters into the community, and he's really rough around the edges. I mean, he is both kind of arrogant and insecure and disrupting the discipline, kind of egoistic, doesn't want to follow the collective flow, challenging everything, not participating in the duties, and kind of driving everyone nuts, And so eventually he gets into a kind of clash with some of the other disciples and gets into a huff and, storms off and is leaving the ashram. Oh, everybody's so relieved, And then the teacher, the head of the monastery, calls one of the senior disciples and he says, please, you go after him and you've got to convince him to come back. And this disciple just can't imagine why this person is so obnoxious. Why of all people is the guru, why is this teacher like so, invested in getting him back? But okay, it was his order, so he just went off and, he brought him back. But he couldn't contain his curiosity. Now, eventually he asked for a private audience with the head of the monastery, and he was like, I don't understand. He seems to have no potential, I mean, he's so indisciplined, he drives everybody nuts. And why? Why did you bring him back? And he said, oh, well, he is the most important element right now of your teaching, of your actual training. What? He said, it's easy to be tolerant and patient when you're with people that are, all in a similar flow. He said, when you have somebody like this, it really tests you. You really have to cultivate your character. I would even be willing to pay him to stay here because he is testing all of you in your actual spiritual growth. And he's doing much better work than I am at cultivating your character. So it's like this. Now, in a spiritual community, what does it mean actually to be in a spiritual community? There's a lovely quote by a Bulgarian spiritual master, Ivanhov, Master Omram Mikhailov, Ivanhov is his name. And he writes about spiritual community and says, try to understand the value of being in a spiritual community, because in a spiritual community, you're going to meet people with all kinds of degrees of spiritual evolution. Some are more advanced, some are not. And you didn't choose to be together. You're not there just because you're friends. You have to learn how to love them, even if you don't particularly like them. Some of the people that you might be put together with might even be quite obnoxious. They might really grate against your own sensibilities and your own feelings. And yet you've got to learn to love them in the sense of to be able to help each other to grow. Usually people instinctively are only going to choose to be around people they like and that are similar to them. And tell them things they like to hear. Make us feel good. don't challenge us too much on our weaknesses and so forth. But that doesn't necessarily accelerate our inner growth, our inner learning. In a spiritual community, what binds us together is when we're all sharing the same goal. You know, we all have a spiritual common ideal, goal, practice. And yet, maybe on other levels, we don't share other things so much in common. And some of the people that we come across might really, you know, irritate us. So then we get a chance to really look at ourselves in the mirror, to confront our own difficulties with being tolerant, with cultivating, you know, different types of virtues of patience, of understanding, of magnanimity of mind, of really being able to develop also what is unconditional love. Conditional love is like, okay, you're nice to me, I'm nice to you. You're nasty to me, I'm nasty to you. You know, it's just eye for an eye kind of thinking. But when we are trying to evolve spiritually, to try and develop the quality of unconditional love, then the challenge is to be able to help people even when they're pinchy, even when they're being irritating or frustrated or negative. So back to my personal experiences. So I had the wonderful opportunity during my training to live in really spiritual community. You know, the lifestyle that I've chosen is more solitary, actually. We are spread out all over the world to be able to reach as many people as possible. We don't get the opportunity to spend much time living together in a monastery, just during our training periods and periodically during the year when we gather together. But the rest of the time, we're sent out to do service, to be embedded in society, to be part of the society, not to be withdrawn, you know, and to be actively contributing to service, etc., to the world around us, make it a better place. So yeah, this is just the path I've chosen, is more active, engaged type of spirituality, not just a contemplative tradition to, you know, go off in the mountains and sit in the Himalayas and enjoy your own meditation. It's really oriented towards finding that bliss inside, but also sharing it and helping the world around us. But our training period, we do get that opportunity to live in spiritual community. And, you know, on some level, it's just like you would imagine. I mean, we were in Sweden, in the middle of the forest, surrounded by, you know, these beautiful silent pine trees and moss, you know, covered rocks, and many lakes that had been carved out by the glaciers. So it was just very peaceful, very beautiful nature around us. Very isolated. There were maybe 10 other houses in the whole village besides our own. And hardly ever saw our neighbors. So we had this very idyllic surroundings, and a small group of maybe about 10 sisters that we were living together for our training. And it was really kind of a pressure cooker because when you're living so closely together and we're following some very strict disciplines, you know, when you wake up, I mean, I was already in my mid-20s, but I had to ask permission to go outside for a walk. And so this was like, oh, you know, my kind of freedom-loving spirit was really a little bit suffering under this kind of restrictions, no, and to feel I have to have permission and things like this. Anyway, at a certain point, there was a sister who became the monitor. And the monitor was the one who was in charge of the discipline, to make sure that we do everything on time, and that if you don't do something on time, then you somehow have to like admit it in front of the group and do something to rectify it, and a little bit humiliating. So I somehow just did not get along very well with her. And I felt like I was just the black sheep, like I was continuously getting pointed out. I was continuously seemed not to be able to do anything right. And it really created such a grinding down of my ego, and yet such a deep learning. You know, that sister taught me maybe more than my best friend, because somebody like that, you know, doesn't have anything to lose, not trying to please me, you know, just was pointing out all my defects. And it was not a comfortable process. This is a process of like really looking intensely into the mirror and not always liking what you see. But it's such an important moment of my life because I had that real, there was a benevolence there. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She just wasn't, she didn't particularly like me, but she wasn't trying to hurt me. And her intentions with telling me things that she felt that I needed to change were essentially benevolent. And it really, made me more aware of my limitations and of the things I have to work on than in any other time in my life. Before I entered the training, all of the sisters apparently had been through some type of communication workshop. And they had all kind of learned this thing where it's like, if you want to say something to someone, first tell them like, I have something I want to express to you. When you have time, can we speak? I soon learned that this was a kind of like warning. Uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Did I offend her? She's gonna have something to tell me. But it prepared my mind, so that when I went to go sit down, I wasn't so defensive. I knew that there was something and I was curious. By the time I said, okay, yes, maybe this afternoon. And then when we'd sit down, I was actually really curious to find out what it was. And so my mind, it wasn't like just, right in the moment when something had happened and just reactive. It was really reflective. And I also was more open into listening. And yes, when you said this the other day, this is how I felt. And next time I'd really like you to do like this. So they were using all of these elements, I think, of nonviolent communication. But it worked. It really worked. It really made me aware. I don't think I'd been aware until then how some of my actions, affected or impacted other people. And it was an incredible gift for my own spiritual growing and my own self-awareness and development. So this is the gift. The gift is a surprising one because it's not just the gift of peace and love and sweetness. It can be quite intense, quite like being in a, if you wash your clothes in a washing machine, they're spinning around and it's full of soap and, dirty water until they get clean. So, it's not just the metaphor of like if you have a puddle and if you've let it settle, for a while, then all the dirt's on the bottom and the water looks very nice and clear. But the moment that it gets stirred up, it becomes cloudy because that dirt is still there. It's just settled on the bottom. So when we're in circumstances that kind of stir up the waters, it can feel like, you can feel more aware of all of that dirt, or all of those negative things that you're not so proud of, that you don't like so much about yourself. They're more stirred up, they're more on the surface. But through that process, you're becoming free of them. You're actually eliminating them. You're actually purifying them, getting them out. If you take it in the positive way, if you take it in the spirit of obstacles are my helping forces. They're not there to destroy me, they're here to help me. They're here to help me to understand, to grow, to deepen. So spiritual community is one of the best ways to evolve. When we are on our own, we can have an illusion that we are quite balanced, that everything is fine, that we are so compassionate. But this is kind of the puddle all the dirt has just settled to the bottom. We're not putting ourselves in a challenging situation. So the real test is, how are we when we are in an intensely social situation like a spiritual community that really makes us evolve? There's another type of spiritual community which I think is equally valid, which is the family. Now, when there are two partners that are both committed to each other's spiritual evolution, then that also creates the same type of intense mirroring and intense reflections where, you can learn how, by loving that one person, by allowing them to see you fully and see all of your defects and limitations, and using that to help overcome your limitations, it helps you to become a more loving person a more unconditionally giving person. So you don't have to look far. You don't have to go off to the mountains. You don't have to go off to Sweden. If you're already in a committed relationship, and especially if the two of you are sharing a common spiritual goal, a common spiritual philosophy and practice, then that also becomes your spiritual community, you know? And then if you also join with others who are practicing meditation, you practice meditation together, that's also spiritual community. Again, you don't have to go far. You might have a spiritual community in your own city. And you can find out more about all of the different collective meditations and spiritual community that we are creating here through Meditation Steps in the description below. And this is really important because, you know, human beings are primarily social beings. We need each other. We do better when we are in community, when we have that support. And specifically in spiritual community, like I said, it's not just about like and dislike. It's about being able to help each other to grow, to be compassionate mirrors to each other, not just to reflect back only the things that we like, but to also have enough real love to prioritize other people's growth and your own, you know, and to be able to communicate to them with compassion to help them to grow. So I hope that it will inspire you to take your practice to the next level by being part of spiritual community on whatever level is accessible to you. Start there, you know. Even coming to retreats gives you a little taste for a few days of what it's like to be in spiritual community. More the honeymoon level of it, the beautiful level of it. The real depth comes when you have to be with each other through, you know, through difficulties, through moments of disagreement, through how you handle differences of opinion, and still move together. Still keep moving together towards that common goal. Yes, I wish you a lot of Sangha Chatfam, which means move together. Let's move together. Let's sing together. Let's dance together. Let's come to know our minds together. Let's be as one. Namaskar. Namaskar. I don't even really know how to express how grateful I am for all of those of you that are working behind the scenes with your donations, with volunteer work, with professionalism to really make the Meditation Steps project successful and reach this vision that we have of bringing the tools of meditation, the philosophy that underpins it, the lifestyle practices, you know, to as many people as possible for free all over the world. So it's just a big honor to be part of it, and it wouldn't be possible without the support. So you can find more about how to join and how to be part of this vision. And if you're feeling the benefit of these practices, of the philosophy, let's work together to get it to as many people as possible. Find out how you can do that below in the description, and there will be some links there. And I hope that together we can really transform this world with a flood of compassion, love, and inner peace that comes from meditation. Thank you.